Hi there, history fans. First of all, I'm sorry for the bad light. I'm recording a little bit late because I had other stuff to do today. So today we are continuing with the Napoleonic War series from Epic History TV. And we have a third video called Napoleon's Masterpiece, Austerlitz, 1805. So we already covered two videos of them. The links are going to be here. They're about the infantry tactics back then and the Battle of Toulon in France, where Napoleon gained a huge victory and was very important for the victory on the French side. Okay, yeah, we're jumping to the year 1805. As always, I'm going to give some additional information, interesting stuff that I know. If you have anything interesting to share, add, correct me on something that I said, please let me know in the comment section below. I read all the comments, and because we all know that it always depends on the country you come from and your education, you know, like on perspective on different things in history, and especially Napoleon and the Napoleonic Wars, because there are some definitely, you know, like conflicting ideas and theories about him and what he presented to Europe and to European countries. But yeah, let's jump in to the video.
An Epic History TV History March collaboration, supported by our sponsor, The Great Courses Plus.
Maybe turn up the...
In December 1804, in the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, Napoleon Bonaparte crowned himself Emperor of the French.
Yep.
Europe had never seen such a sudden and dramatic rise to power. A son of impoverished Corsican nobility to military dictator of France in little more than 10 years.
I don't know if I said it, but the link, as always, is going to be in the description below. Go give them a view and a like, because they make really great videos and they definitely deserve it.
Revolution and war had cleared Napoleon's path to the throne. War would dominate his 10-year reign. A conflict unprecedented in history that would leave millions dead and a continent in turmoil.
Austerlitz is in today's Czech Republic.
8 months after Napoleon's coronation, the French Empire and its Spanish ally were at war with Britain, and Napoleon had assembled an army of 180,000 men along the Channel coast. But as long as the British Royal Navy ruled the seas, invasion was impossible. But nor could Britain challenge France on land. And so British Prime Minister William Pitt tried to build a European coalition against Napoleon, using diplomacy and gold.
Yeah, one interesting thing to know, like, during the Napoleonic Wars, France and Napoleon, they dominated, I mean, in the early stages. Later on, they're going to be pushed back, but they dominated on land, and as we all know, Great Britain was always a big naval power, and they controlled the La Manche, or the English Channel, I think the Brits call it that way. So they controlled the sea, and of course also the Mediterranean, and also the exit from Mediterranean to the ocean, Gibraltar. So they dominated. Great Britain dominated the seas, but France dominated the land, and they couldn't compete each other on the different territories. You know, like Great Britain couldn't compete alone against France on land, so they never kind of, except Toulon, they never kind of tried to make a greater invasion on land, and Napoleon couldn't invade Great Britain because as he said, like, the British Navy controlled the sea and the Channel.
Britain would prove Napoleon's most steadfast enemy, and its press delighted in relentless mockery of the French Emperor.
Yep.
Britain and France were old rivals in Europe and overseas. But now, Pitt feared Napoleon's conquests had made France too powerful, the French Emperor had to be defeated, and Europe's balance of power restored if there was ever to be lasting peace. Pitt found willing allies in Europe among monarchs.
One also important thing, because of the British dominance on sea, France was practically cut off of its colonies. So all the supply lines that were coming from the colonies to France were cut off, or a lot of them. So that's some of the things that you always need to keep in mind.
Who despised Napoleon as a product of the French Revolution and a dangerous threat to the existing order. Austria harboured the deepest grievances, having seen her influence in Germany and Italy steadily eroded by French victories. The final straw came in May 1804, when Napoleon had also crowned himself King of Italy in Milan. Austria, Russia, Sweden and Naples joined Britain in an alliance known as the Third Coalition, and devised an ambitious plan for a series of joint offensives against France.
Yeah.
The main attack would be made by a combined Austro-Russian army, advancing across the Rhine into France. But Napoleon got word of their plans, and reacted with typical speed and decision. He was determined to strike first, before the Allies could join forces, and ordered his army, now renamed La Grande Armée, to march to the River Rhine. His target was the Austrian army of General Mack, which had made a premature advance against Bavaria, a French ally, and was now dangerously isolated from the other Allied armies. Napoleon ordered Marshal Murat, his famously flamboyant cavalry commander, to make feint attacks through the Black Forest, while the rest of his army, advancing at speed, enveloped Mack's army from the north. That summer, Napoleon's Grande Armée was at its most formidable. Well-trained, highly motivated, its regiments at full strength. What's more, it had been newly reorganized according to the corps system, later imitated by virtually every army in the world. Each corps, commanded by a marshal, was a mini-army of 15,000 to 30,000 soldiers, with its own infantry, cavalry, artillery and supporting arms, such as reconnaissance, engineers and transport. This meant each corps could march and fight for a limited time independently, allowing Napoleon to break with the old doctrine of keeping his army concentrated and advance with his corps widely dispersed. This helped to disguise his real objective and increased movement speed, because the army could advance along multiple roads and live off the land, taking its supplies from scattered villages, rather than relying on slow-moving supply wagons. When the enemy's main force...
Yeah, that's going to be something that you're always going to see regarding Le Grande Armée, or Napoleon's army, the Great Army, is that the movement of the army was very important and very impressive for that day, and the chain of command was also how to say it, I don't know the exact English term, but lockera. It was way easier for the companies to act on their own, as he mentioned. And one of the things, or the best thing for that army, was that they were so highly mobile. That's some of the things, one of the things that you need to keep in mind when you talk, especially in the early days of the Napoleonic Wars.
Force was located, the army could quickly concentrate for battle. This is how Napoleon's army was able to move at a speed that often surprised and disorientated his enemies.
Yep.
Mack didn't realize the danger he was in until it was too late. Napoleon's fast-moving corps crossed the Danube behind him and surrounded his army. Mack launched a series of poorly coordinated counterattacks, but despite some desperate fighting, the Austrians couldn't break out of the trap. Mack hoped that Kutuzov's Russian army could arrive in time to save him, but the Russians were still 160 miles away. And so, at Ulm, on the 19th of October, just 6 weeks into the war, Mack surrendered his army to Napoleon. The French took nearly 60,000 Austrian prisoners, and Napoleon had struck his
big
first
number
devastating
for
blow
that time
against the coalition. Russian General Mikhail Kutuzov was an experienced and wary commander, more cautious than Mack. His army was exhausted after its 900-mile march from Russia, but hearing of the Austrians' surrender at Ulm, and knowing he wasn't strong enough to face Napoleon alone, he immediately ordered a retreat. Napoleon pursued. The Russians fought several sharp rearguard actions, but could not save the Austrian capital, Vienna, which the French occupied on the 12th of October. Kutuzov slipped away to Olmütz in today's Czech Republic, where he was joined by reinforcements, as well as Emperor Alexander of Russia and Emperor Francis of Austria in person. Napoleon was furious that Kutuzov had escaped. By now his army was also exhausted, and far from home, with winter approaching. He needed to force a decisive battle, quickly. Fortunately for him, the overconfident 27-year-old Russian emperor sought the glory of battle, overriding the concerns of his veteran commander, General Kutuzov. With the Allied army closing in, Napoleon ordered his corps to rapidly concentrate on a battlefield he had carefully selected, near the town of Austerlitz. Napoleon oversaw the dispositions of his army late into the night, then grabbed a few hours' sleep beside a campfire. Dawn would mark the first anniversary of his coronation as emperor, and promised a battle that would make or break his young empire.
What was that? He looks like an Ottoman soldier. Or is it just me?
Promised a battle that would make or break his young empire.
Let's finish this war with a thunderclap.
The morning of the 2nd of December 1805 was cold and bright with a heavy mist. Two armies of near equal size faced each other across a 7-mile wide battlefield. But the Allies held the high ground of the Pratzen Heights, while French Third Corps under Marshal Davout was still marching to the battlefield. Seeing Napoleon's thinly stretched right flank, the Allies planned a large-scale attack from the Pratzen Heights to steamroller the French right, before swinging round to envelop Napoleon's army.
Okay, so
little did they know, Napoleon was counting on his weak right wing luring the Allies into just such a move, whereupon he would launch his own attack on the Pratzen Heights to cut the Allied army in half. His bold plan relied on his correct prediction of Allied movements, the speedy arrival of Davout's Third Corps on his right, and a perfectly timed counterattack.
I mean, if you watch the terrain and the initial tactics, I think, like from the Russian perspective, it seems kind of logical. You break the weaker parts of the army or the sides, and then you can attack and shoot at the enemy from 2 or 3 directions. So I don't blame the Russians for developing this plan, because it's kind of seems logical to me. But as he said, Napoleon counted on it.
The battle began around 7 a.m. as Austrian troops of General Kienmayer's advance guard clashed with French troops defending the village of Telnitz. In the face of overwhelming odds, the French fought stubbornly and bravely, but gradually they were forced back. But the Allies, instead of carrying out their great enveloping attack, did nothing. The morning mist and the late arrival of orders had led to confusion and delay, and it was another hour before the first 3 Allied columns were on the move. Soon fierce fighting erupted around Sokolnitz village and castle. Marshal Davout's corps, which had just force-marched 70 miles in 2 days, now arrived to strengthen the French right wing. Around 9 a.m, his lead infantry brigade appeared suddenly through the mist and retook Telnitz, before being driven back in turn by Austrian hussars. 2 more of Davout's brigades reinforced French troops at Sokolnitz. As the mist began to clear, Napoleon saw that, as he'd hoped, the Allied left was moving off the Pratzen Heights, and he ordered Marshal Soult's 4th Corps to begin its attack. To the alarm of Allied commanders, 2 French infantry divisions, until now hidden by the mist, were suddenly seen advancing straight towards the Allied
What are they doing
center.
here? What's with them?
General Kutuzov was forced to hurriedly organize a defense of the heights, using troops of 4 column. 2 hours of bloody fighting followed. Musket fire was so rapid and furious that both sides were soon low on ammunition and turned to the bayonet. By 11 a.m, the French, with the advantage in training and discipline, had secured the heights and driven a deep wedge into the Allied position. To the north, a giant cavalry battle developed. While a Russian force from General Bagration's advance guard captured the village of Bosenitz, before it was halted by cannon fire from the Santon Hill. A decisive charge by 6 regiments of French heavy cavalry.
Just imagine giving orders and you know, like control. This isn't like 10 meters apart. This is a fairly big distance. Just imagine in that smoke, in you know, like those loud cannon noises, muskets and everything, to give orders and to keep the orders, you know, like correct. As they arrive to the individual battalion. Just crazy, just crazy.
Finally
crazy.
drove back the Allies, allowing Marshal Lannes' 5 Corps to move forward and seize Blasowitz and Krug. Now, Grand Duke Constantine, commanding the Russian Imperial Guard, led forward this last Allied reserve in a desperate bid to reclaim the Pratzen Heights. A battalion of the French 4th Line Regiment was charged down by Russian Guard cavalry, losing its Eagle standard in bloody fighting. Napoleon, who'd moved up to the heights, sent in his own Guard cavalry. In this grim melee between the elite horsemen of both armies, the French finally prevailed. Napoleon had broken the Allied centre. Now, to close the trap on the Allied left wing, still locked in heavy fighting around Sokolnitz. Around 2 p.m, Napoleon ordered 4 divisions to swing south and cut off their retreat.
Yeah, they just encircled them.
General Buxhowden, commanding the Allied left, only now saw the danger he was in. Attacked from 3 sides, the only escape was south. Many of his troops were forced to flee across frozen ponds.
So they just broke
French
the...
artillery opened fire, trying to smash the ice with their cannonballs. About 200 men and dozens of horses drowned in the freezing water. but not the many thousands of Napoleon's propaganda.
Yeah, this was a big victory for him.
The French Emperor had won a brilliant victory. His army had taken more than 10,000 prisoners and captured 45 enemy standards. Thousands of dead and wounded of all sides littered the battlefield. Many left untended for days.
Let's just compare the numbers. So the French had, what, 1,200? Wow, 6.5. French wounded 7. Just compare the numbers. Just compare the numbers. I mean, the numbers are crazy. For the population, the number of people living back then, you know, like, those numbers are big. And that was a big victory on Napoleonic's part. Just compare the numbers. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy.
The Battle of the Three Emperors, as it became known, was a crushing blow to the Third Coalition. As Russian forces retreated back to Russia, Francis I of Austria was forced to accept a humiliating settlement with France, agreeing
Pressburg.
to pay a 40 million franc indemnity and give up more territory in exchange for peace. But meanwhile, news had reached Napoleon of a disastrous Franco-Spanish defeat at sea off
Admiral
Cape Trafalgar.
Nelson.
British Admiral Lord Nelson, at the cost of his own life, had masterminded a victory so complete that it ensured British naval dominance, not just for the rest of the war, but for the next 100 years. Britain, master of the sea. Napoleon, unbeatable on land.
Yeah, as I said.
The whale and the elephant, neither able to challenge the other in its own domain. When William Pitt received news of Napoleon's victory at Austerlitz, he's supposed to have said, "Roll up that map of Europe. It will not be wanted these 10 years." A month later, Pitt was dead. But his warning that Europe faced another 10 years of war and upheaval was to prove prophetic. Napoleon Bonaparte was the ultimate disruptor of European history. One man who transformed a continent. If you want to find out more, why not try a free trial with the Great Courses Plus, a fantastic on-demand video subscription service featuring more than 70
I'm just gonna pause here, but yeah,
history
I
courses.
mean,
all
okay,
taught
I'm
by
just
top
going
academics.
to make it. Yeah, I mean, it's always great that they kind of succeed in finding sponsors, and of course the patrons that are supporting them. That I find it really great, and the history community on YouTube is, as far as I'm concerned until now, great, welcoming, supportive, and everything. So yeah, so after the Battle of Austerlitz, as he mentioned, the Treaty of Pressburg. That's very important, especially because Venice was given to the Kingdom of Italy. And as he mentioned, Napoleon crowned himself, or was crowned, in Milan as the King of Italy. So practically Venice and the territories of Venice went to Napoleon, and with Venice also the territories of the Habsburg monarchy of Istria and Dalmatia in today's Croatia went also with Venice to the Italian Italian kingdom. And with the Treaty of Pressburg, they also confirmed the two prior peace treaties. The one in Campo Formio, and the second in, oh my god, I always pronounce it incorrectly, Luneville. My French is really bad. But yeah, and of course, and then Napoleon also, as he said at the beginning, Bavaria was an ally of Napoleon back then, and Germany, as also Italy, was wasn't united back then. You didn't have Germany and Italy. You had still all those small kingdoms, duchies and whatever. And some of them would, of course, side with the coalitions, and some of them would side with France. And the ones that sided with France were Bavaria, Württemberg, and Baden. Those were the three like big German, like territories that joined and helped the French. And after that, Napoleon also formed a, let's call it a puppet buffer state between him and Prussia, which was still a big, formidable force in Europe. And he called it oh my God, I forgot the real name, but it's something like the Rhine Alliance. So a coalition or a state of all the German small duchies and states that existed throughout the Rhine River. So they were kind of treated as a buffer between France and Prussia. The Confederation of the Rhine. Later on, from the Kingdom of Italy, there were something very important for Croatian, Slovenian, and identity or history or whatever you want to call it, is the establishment of the Illyrian provinces. But we're going to talk about it probably later. But they were also established a few years later after the Battle of Austerlitz, and because Southern Slavic national identities and so on. It's a big complicated topic, but we're probably going to mention it in the next video when we cover the next battle, because the map, and then I'm going to show you that on a map. One interesting thing, while Napoleon was winning throughout Europe, he always kind of remade the map of Europe with all the territories, the names of the states. He made new states. He what is the English term? Dissolved old, like I wouldn't call them nations, but countries, territories, and so on. And it's a big, complicated topic, and if I start to ramble about that, it's going to take, 2 hours and so on. But I'm going to cover it also in the next videos. So for now on, Napoleon is winning. He's pushing to the east. He's winning against the coalitions. And this was a big victory, and he gained also a lot of territory, allies, made new states, and and he definitely gained a lot of prestige with the victory at Austerlitz. Okay, I hope that you enjoyed it. If you want to see more videos, reaction videos, and also reaction videos on the Napoleonic series, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, so you don't miss out new videos when they come out. And I promise I won't. I will try to make new videos a little bit earlier, so that I don't need to use this lamp. Yeah. Okay. Enough for today. Well, see ya.